Well, good morning.
Good morning.
A warm welcome to you all. And it felt so good when I walked in here this morning, coming inside. So we just enjoy what we have in this moment and enjoy the cold when you're out in the cold. Protect yourself, but enjoy it. Equanimity. You cannot be serious. Equanimity today? You must be crazy. That's what I hear sometimes. Sometimes from other people, most of the time from right up here, myself. How can we have equanimity in a world like it is today? That's a question so many people ask, wonder. And even if we think we know, we sometimes keep falling into the belief that equanimity cannot be possible in a world that's gone quite crazy. So I wanted to talk about equanimity and to reinforce to all of us and to myself as well that equanimity is an internal practice. So when we talk about experiencing equanimity, we're not talking about agreeing with anything that's happening outside of ourselves. We're not talking about approving of anything or accepting anything other than our present moment experience, which is internal experience. See, when we talk about experience, we're talking about our experience of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, sensing. What happens externally will happen externally. The sun rises, the sun sets, winter comes, winter goes, we all hope. Spring arrives. And that all happens by itself, whether we approve of it or not, you see. And so it is with the affairs of humans. Things happen that we like, things happen that we don't like. But what's important is what our personal experience is. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? That's where the equanimity comes in. So it's not a strategy for behavior. Equanimity is not, passive aggressiveness or passive resistance or any kind of a political strategy or social strategy. We're not talking about that at all. Somebody asked me, do you have equanimity when you watch the Chiefs games? I mean, I can now. But before the game starts, can you have equanimity? Well, yeah, I can have equanimity with whatever I'm feeling. I can root for the Chiefs and want them to win and hope they do and be disappointed if they don't, and have equanimity with every one of those feelings, you see. So it's not about what the weather's like. It's not about who's in office. It's not about whether the Chiefs win or lose. It's about what we're experiencing right here, right now within ourselves. That's where the practice of equanimity applies. So it's not a strategy for behavior. It's a practice that's adapted for the purpose of spiritual awakening, for the practice of becoming free of suffering. Sometimes I'll hear a yogi, a student, come to me and say, I try to have equanimity, but when I turn on the television, I just lose it. It goes out the window. Somehow there's the experience that if I'm angry or upset in any way, that's not equanimity. You can't tell equanimity from the outside. You can't look at somebody else and say they're being equanimous or not. I can be angry and have equanimity. I can be very quiet and not have equanimity. It's not what my behavior looks like. It's not what my thoughts and feelings are. It's about how I relate to them. It's about the response to each experience. So that's very important. It's a subtlety that is often overlooked and sometimes not understood by many folks, that our practice is not about trying to feel a certain way or trying to act a certain way or trying to look a certain way. It's not about how you sit as much as it is how are you sitting with what's going on inside of you. Equanimity, the practice of equanimity, is about setting the intention to meet each internal experience with complete acceptance. That's really what it is. It's an intention to meet each experience with acceptance, with peace, making friends with every experience. That's the intention. An intention is not a should. Okay, so that's one of the problems we have, is that we make our intentions should. Because that's a direction I want to move. The superego gets in there and says, well, you should be there. The intention may be to watch the breath. And if you're not watching the breath, you haven't broken a commandment. You haven't disobeyed the Buddha. You're not going to be punished. It's just about coming back to the breath. That's all it is, returning to the breath. So an intention is like a compass needle. You intend to go north or south or whatever. And when you travel, you don't necessarily travel on a straight line. It's impossible. But when we find we're off course, we come back on. Like riding a bicycle as well. It's another example. When we're riding a bicycle, we're always wiggling. We're never... Yet the intention is to stay on the bicycle, to stay balanced. And so that's really what an intention is. It's like being balanced with where we want to go. It's not a goal. There's no finish line. Equanimity, the practice of equanimity, is not 100% binary. You're not either there or not there. It's either, am I on intention or am I not? Am I following the breath or am I not? Am I allowing my experience in this moment, or is there resistance somewhere in the body or in the mind, in the heart? So it's not a goal. It's not a should. We cannot will our way into equanimity. I will have equanimity. I'm going to have equanimity if it kills me. And it probably will if we try that, because that's really so much of what masquerades as equanimity is suppression. Maybe somebody feels anger or sadness or something, but it's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to have equanimity. I can't. I can't be angry. I can't cry. I can't do whatever, I'm having equanimity. So I call that the counterfeit Buddha, You try to adopt this attitude of I'm the Buddha. Always smiling. I doubt if the Buddha was always smiling. I think he was human. If he wasn't human, what would his life be like for us? Now, he became more than human, but he had to go through his humanity before he became human. He didn't come down as some celestial being already purified. He went through trials and tribulations. He went through temptations and difficulties. And that's how he became more than human, how he became awake, you say. And so it is, we're human. We are all human. And yet we are more than human. See, that's the potential. We have a potential to be much more than human. And that's what this practice is about. So ironically, we become more than human. We become all that we can be, not by trying to do anything, but by not trying to be anything. Because the trying actually gets in the way. The more we're trying, the more we're not there. When somebody says, well, I'll try to make it to your party, or, guess what? You don't expect them to be there, right? Because they're just sitting home trying. I'm sure trying to be there. Yeah, I tried to get to temple last Sunday, but I just couldn't do it. So either we do it or we don't. And that's what equanimity practice is about. Am I practicing equanimity or am I not? If I'm not, then I come back to it. But there's no should, there's no measuring, there's no judging. We're not grading ourselves. We don't say, gee, I'm getting so much better than I was last week. Or I have more equanimity than she does. We can't have equanimity races or contests. It doesn't work that way. Equanimity is how we meet each experience. Meeting each experience as it rises and falls. I think I've told this story here before about a time many years ago when I was fishing in Lake Michigan. I was salmon fishing with a friend of mine, and a little squall came in, and we decided to ride it out. The Coast Guard said the waves were 3 to 4 feet high. We had a boat that could handle that, we thought. 3, 4 feet. Right? That's not too big a wave. Well, we discovered that waves are not measured from trough to crest. They're measured from the center line to the crest, which means that a 4-foot wave, there's 8 feet between the cross. Makes a little bit of a difference. We learned something that day. And so we survived, of course, but boy, we got tossed around the boat. The coolers were flopping, the tackle boxes were flopping back and forth. We couldn't catch any fish because we couldn't stand up straight. But I looked around and I saw we were surrounded by seagulls, which we typically are. They like fishing boats. They like the tips they get, the bait and when you clean the fish and so forth. The seagulls were all around us, going up and down and up and down. And we're being knocked back and forth, getting sick, fighting, struggling, the boat's getting rocked back and forth. Meanwhile, the seagulls are watching us. They're going up and down, just riding the crest of the wave. It's like it didn't matter to them how high the waves were. They just sat there, right? 1 foot waves, 2 foot waves, 4 foot waves, they didn't care. Because they could be right with what was happening. But we in the boat, we were struggling against it, you see. So that's kind of an example of equanimity in that regard. It just is a visual of how we can ride the waves, so to speak. I brought a little demo with me. We'll see how this works. Sometimes I use a bell to demonstrate equanimity. So let's say, let me talk about non-equanimity. Let's say we get angry. And when we get angry, we create a story. And then we talk about, what did they do? You see what he did? You know, I shouldn't have done that. I got no right to do that. You know, blah, 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 blah. So when that happens, it's like we get angry and then we have the second arrow, the third arrow, and the fourth arrow. And it goes something like this. Here's the anger. Here's what we do with it. Right? It just feeds on itself. Sometimes we may call a friend. Do you know what I saw? Did you hear what they did? You see what he did? And then we get somebody else to join us in there. So they're home ringing their bell too. Creating even more. Yes, sir. Then on the other hand, sometimes we want to be a good yogi. We want to practice equanimity, but we don't have the understanding of what that's like, so equanimity becomes suppression. So here comes anger. Right? Oh, I'm practicing equanimity. Say, I can't let this anger come up. So what is equanimity? Equanimity is this. Okay? Comes and it goes. You don't have to stop it. You don't have to smother it. You don't have to keep feeding it. Just let it come up, let it come down, just like the seagull riding the wave. Let it be what it is. So sometimes there's a poem I want. Many of you are familiar with this poem, but I think it's a great poem. It's called The Guest House by Brumet. This being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness shows up as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So it's welcoming. Welcome each experience, whatever it may be, even if it's an unwelcome experience. I can welcome that. If I don't like what I'm feeling, I can welcome the fact that I don't like it. So what is my experience? You see, that's the question. How do we take action if we have equanimity? Well, we take action not from emotion, but from intention. We create an intention, and when there's equanimity, when we're not attached, then we may choose to act. And if we act boldly, but without attachment to the outcome. That's really the key, you see. To not act from anger, to not act from fear, but to act from intentionality. And at the same time, not be attached to the outcome of our actions. So we act and we let it go. We ring the bell, and then we let it go. We don't know where it's going to end. You see, so that's the work we have. Internally, welcome each experience. Externally, do I choose to act? If I choose to act, can I first be clear? Can I have equanimity? Can I have an intention? Act from that intention, and then let go of any attachment to results. I'll end with this quote from Lao Tzu. He says, do you have the patience to wait till your mind settles and the mind is clear? Can you remain unmoving until the right action arises by itself? And maybe you've had that experience where something just, you say something, you do something, but you do it out of clarity. It's effortless, and the result is more powerful than you ever thought it would be. But it's so effortless, you see. So, may our practice be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Thank you for sharing your practice with us here this morning.